is there a way to reset this device without having these tools and reflashing the BIOS? Yes, there is. You just need to know the BIOS password. If you do, you can do it without tools. Hello friends, welcome back to the bench. Our today's patient is a patient from yesterday. Our yesterday's patient proved to us that using my previous technique of resetting the BIOS on these machines causes the computer not to work correctly anymore. I mean, the computer boots and Windows boots and everything is fine, but if you go to your device manager in Windows, you have two devices that have not been installed due to error. That is ME and the Microsoft Touch. So that causes the touch screen to stop working. When you go into BIOS, the version number of the touch firmware is 0000. So that is what we're gonna do today. Actually, not that. This time we're gonna do it properly. And if you have followed my previous procedure and you reflashed your BIOS on your Surface Pro 4 and the touch doesn't work, if you followed the procedure exactly, you made the backup of existing BIOS just to be sure. I actually didn't do it in my video, which is too bad because now I have some machines that are bricked. But I did mention that this is usually what I do, and this machine, this is the machine that I did for George, and that was the problem where it just kept spinning, and I removed the SSD, and that was the SSD we diagnosed some time ago, and there was one chip shorted on it, and that was causing it to not boot. I replaced the SSD, I reflashed the BIOS, and I installed Windows on it. The Windows actually turns out to be burned for this one. It has been used on another device, so it can no longer be used. It screams for activation. That is easily fixed because I have some spare licenses, so that's not an issue. But since I kept the original BIOS for it, because this was the customer job, I kept the backup. I managed to reset this one without losing touch. The touch works, and there's no BIOS on the there's no BIOS password on it. Now with this one, oh, and actually I wanted to show you, this is pretty curious because I did not know that. So before, when I was reflashing the BIOS, the computer would boot to Windows and present the user password screen. So I concluded that the BitLocker encryption does not use BIOS to store keys. I was wrong about that. And this one, it was the same thing. Let's boot it to BIOS, right? So the BIOS password is removed. And the touch doesn't work in the BIOS, but it works in Windows. And this is one curious thing about this. I haven't seen that yet. I've seen it the other way around, where it would work in the BIOS but not in the system, but not this way. But we have a touch firmware, and that's what we're interested in. So the touch will work in the system. For some reason, it doesn't work in the BIOS. But this computer had no password, no user password on the system user. I guess it automatically was BitLocked. Not sure why, because it never asked me whether I wanted to BitLock or not. But since there was no password on the user, now it requires a recovery key to get into the partition. And as you can see, the touch works in the system. no problem. For some reason, doesn't work in the BIOS. Again, curious case. But also something to realize is that if there is no Windows password or the password on the Windows user, the key is stored in the BIOS, and it's stored in the BIOS region, not in any other region, because that's the only region I'm resetting on this. And before, I thought maybe it's just stored in TPM, because that's pretty much what TPM is. It's just kind of a storage device, the actual device that you connect to, and there's an API, and you can verify keys, create keys, all kinds of stuff regarding security. So so this is pretty interesting. It's good to know. It's good to know. And so when you send the machine for reset like this, just be aware if there, or just let me know that you want the data backed up from it, or back it up yourself. No need to pay me for that. Because this might be an issue. I reset the BIOS and we can't get into Windows anymore. Obviously, I can reset it to just remove everything. This doesn't actually work if you go to troubleshoot and reset PC and remove everything. It won't let you do that. Well, cloud Windows, let's do cloud. Yeah. And it just goes back to the first option. I assume it's for a security reason. We don't want to allow you to delete the drive that is encrypted, right? Maybe I've tried it with other computers, and it would work with this one again. But this one is really curious that it gave me so many issues. I don't know if I can. So this was sent by George, and I gave him a replacement device, right? A completely different device, because this one was giving so much issues. And it's like a month later now, and I still haven't finished working with this one. But I'm making progress. It looks like it will be fixed eventually. Now with this guy, so this is our patient from yesterday, on which I resoldered the old BIOS, right? And unsurprisingly, the touch returned. Let's get in the BIOS. All right, and we have the password, right? But the touch is working. Right, so that concludes the experiment. Yes, reflashing BIOS completely removes the touch. Now, what I did is I already removed the SSD, put it in the adapter, ran a clean command from disk part in Windows. And so there's no partitions. It's a completely clean SSD over there. That's why when we restart it, let's restart it. Very important to know. Why is it? Well, the restart took. Let me do this. Important thing to know. So you remember when you just reflash the BIOS, when you hit the power button, it would take 20 seconds to show the logo. It would take a long time to boot. And that was because of the BIOS reflash. So once again, this should be roughly the time. 3, 2, 1, on, and Surface logo. About 2 seconds maybe. If it's taking longer, there's something wrong. The computer is struggling with something. Maybe trying to decrypt something. Maybe there is the EC, what is it called? Address or initial pointer, something like that. That if it's screwed up, then it just points in the wrong direction, and and that's why it might take a while, or the computer won't boot at all. But basically that is the reason, or that is the symptom, one of the symptoms of bad reflash job. The computer takes a lot longer to boot initially. So this is password protected. We don't have the password, and actually I get asked this question many times. So let me just state it here. Is there a way to reset this device without having these tools and reflashing the BIOS? Yes, there is. You just need to know the BIOS password. If you do, you can do it without tools. Otherwise, unfortunately, there's no other way. You have to take the chip out, you have to clean the BIOS and resolder the chip. Unless something else is available. But according to Microsoft personnel, there is no way to reflash the BIOS from the USB, and the BIOS itself is not, the Microsoft doesn't provide the BIOS itself. They just give you the MSI that you can install, which is a firmware update. By the way, I did try that on the bad Reflash machine. It didn't help in any way, or it didn't make any difference. Maybe it helped with something else. But they don't have the BIOS alone, BIOS binary alone. It's supposedly it's included in that firmware update, but I haven't actually checked whether the BIOS was updated or not. And well, that's besides the point. Now, what is the correct procedure? What we need is a programmer, hardware station, tweezers and stuff. And first we need to open the computer. So use the new procedure: business cards, 220 on the heat gun, and a medium nozzle. Heat only the areas where the adhesive is. Don't keep the heat for too long, and all that stuff. Once we did that, we locate the BIOS chip. Here's our BIOS chip. Update to the procedure as on this computer. I've never done that before, but on this computer I have tested so many BIOS chips because I had other problems, let's call it that way. And right next to the BIOS chip we have this plastic connector, and as you can see, after a few solderings it started melting. Now this would probably not happen on a regular job when we just do it once, remove the chip and put the chip back. That would probably not happen, and it only happened on this one because I did it so many times. But I'm just going to cover it like this, and that will be my procedure from now on. Alright, just to minimize the potential damage we can do with this. So once that's done, let's go to 95, let's go to 100 and 100 liters at 390 degrees Celsius. And big tweezers, hold the chip, and blow. The chip is off, so we switch to the adapter. Yeah, this part is the same. The update is coming in next steps. This part you have already seen. If you use this programmer, this adapter, there's something to know, which I didn't know, and I thought what was causing my success ratio in soldering these on the adapter to be so low. Like every other time I have to resolder it, right? It looks good, it looks like it's soldered nicely, but the programmer doesn't see it. And sometimes 3 times I gotta do it before I do it right. The reason for that is this. You see the problem? Our ground pad will always be in the position where it has a potential of touching one of the pins, because these pins are a bit too long. If they were shorter, so a little more room over here and over here, that would not be the problem, right? So one thing that you can do, that I do sometimes, is clean all the solder from the ground pad, but the ground pad in this case is pretty clean, so it's good. So what you want to do is when you place it, you want to make sure that you have a lot of solder on these pins and you don't press the chip. You let it float. If you let it float, then the solder is only touching the pins and it's too far away from the ground pad. If you press on it, the ground pad is going to touch one of the pins. So that was the issue I had. Now let's try it without flags, but it probably won't work. So let's go down to 80 liters, because we don't need that much of an airflow. And yes, let's start heating it up. This would be easier if I could heat from the bottom, but I don't have a tool to use at the moment for that, or a setup. So I'm heating it up slowly so I don't blow away the chip. Okay, it was floating for a second. It's a little bit offset to the top. It goes a bit too far up. Too far here. Right, it's going too far up. But it might work as long as we don't press on the chip. If I pressed on the chip now, the ground pad would definitely short pins 5 to 8. The pins 1 to 4 would be fine. Now, unfortunately, we have to let it cool down a bit. Alrighty. Now, let's plug it in and see if the soldering was successful. Let's see. That should do it. Let's go to Neo Programmer and ask, let's turn it on first and ask for the chip. Yay, first try. Yeah, as long as you don't press on it. I actually found that yesterday, because I was wondering why is it so many times I have to redo it. It looks good, and yeah, that's when I flipped it and noticed that, hang on, that's either way that's not gonna fit. So first thing, we need to read the IC. Why do we need to read the IC? Well, first of all, we're doing the backup, right? Once we have the backup, we need to read, I'll show you that in a second. but we just want to clean one region of the binary, not the entire binary, because some of that binary holds the configuration that is specific to this particular machine, and it needs to stay there. I'm not sure what it is exactly and why is it different. It didn't occur to me that it could have been, but yeah, that's the reason. That's the reason the touch doesn't work. And that is our patient with the completely demolished heatsink. So also what you can notice over here is the last BIOS I was flashing was Gregory Clean try number 3. Now why is it try number 3? What happened is after reflashing, after the entire procedure, I put the BIOS in the computer, and the computer wouldn't boot. It wouldn't even start booting. It wouldn't start the booting procedure. So that is usually when the BIOS is corrupted, and that would happen. But I reflashed a different BIOS and it would work. So I figured, was that BIOS, was there something wrong with the procedure itself? Is that combination not right? Or maybe this BIOS had a different version. I didn't check the version. We will check the version here. And let's save it as, let's call this one subject B. Subject B, backup BIOS. Okay, so our BIOS is backed up. Now, let's check the version. So for that, we're gonna use ME Analyzer, and let's go to the BIOS dumps and let's just copy it, subject B backup. Let's copy it to the directory where I keep the analyzer to make it easier. And let's delete this one and call this one BIOS. In which case I can just do this and this. And that's 11.0. 11.6 was the last one I did. So let's see. So why is this important? This is extremely important because based on this version, you need to pick all your tools. So my tool is also 11.8 and it should work. It should work with all the 11s. So let us grab that. I don't want to traverse my computer too much. BIOS dump. You know, I don't want the situation what happened. What's his Vosh? Although I don't have anything like that on my computer, but you know. Subject B, backup BIOS. So let's load it in and discard the changes. It is reading. So if it was wrong version, at this point, it would already crash out. So now, a few words on the regions. What are they for? Well, they're called regions because it's just the space in the binary, right? And so they are kind of like divided into these blocks. What we want to clean is the BIOS region, and we want to leave the ME region untouched. So once this operation was performed of reading this, if we go to the directory where is stored the fit, we're gonna have subject B backup BIOS and decompressed elements of it. So we have BIOS region and we have ME region, and these are the biggest ones, in this case at least. The rest are slightly like few hundred bytes, few thousand bytes maybe. Well, it says 1 kilobyte, but it's probably even less than that. 16 bytes. Yeah. 256 bytes. 4 kilobytes. Oh, size on disk, right, 850. So, our BIOS region is the one that needs to be replaced. So, what we do is we go back to our list, and this is BIOS, just BIOS. And this is clean, that has no password on it, right? And we're just gonna throw it in here and replace it. That's it. Then let's just go to build settings and do not generate intermediate files. Just cleanly build. Now it will complain about some things like, are you sure this is disabled, this is enabled, and all that stuff, but all of that has been, you know, pre-configured by Microsoft for this machine, so I'm just leaving it as it is. I'm not gonna pretend, even attempt to be smarter than Microsoft, you know. So now we have out image over here. So this is our clean BIOS that has no password. So let's copy it and let's paste it in our BIOS dumps and call it subject B clean BIOS. And this is the BIOS that we're gonna write onto the chip. So let's open it. Subject B clean BIOS. Open, erase the chip. We have the backup, so we're not worried. Even if none of this works, we can always revert it back to the previous state by reflashing the original BIOS back. But this is not the first time and not the second time I'm performing this, so I'm pretty confident it will work. The first one I actually wasn't too sure, so the first one I simulated. I created the password 123456 myself, and then performed the procedure of cleaning the BIOS. And it worked the first time. The second time I had some issues. As you can see, the subject B, or the you know, George's computer, it still doesn't have touch in BIOS, right? It does in Windows, so the touch works, but it's curious that it doesn't have a touch in the BIOS. That could be, you know, that could be significant. All right, I haven't finished the thought regarding the problems I had. I replaced the chip and I put it back on the board, and after reflashing, after the cleaning, the computer wouldn't boot. Then I reflashed it with different BIOS and it did boot. So I started suspecting that something is wrong with the procedure, but I did the procedure again and it did work. So what I think happened when I wrote the binary onto the chip, something went wrong there and we had a corruption. So this is extremely possible because I'm using, see, I don't want to touch it right now because that is my new procedure. While it's programming, I'm not touching it. I'm not even touching the desk, because my, extension over here and all those splitters and everything, it's not the ideal setup. So there might be, it could have been when it was writing it, there was just some, poor connection on it, and that's what happened. I'm not sure, but basically, if that happens to you, you write the new BIOS and you put it back on the computer, and the computer doesn't boot. The good chance is it just got corrupted. Just retry, and it should work. All right, so this is clean. Yes. So let's get it back and put it back on the board and see if we have corruptions this time. But I don't think we do. We shouldn't. Okay, tweezers. Hot air. At 80. And wait for it to cool down. Or blow on it. It doesn't have to be exactly at room temperature to retry, but we don't want it to be too hot. Sometimes it doesn't want to get in. Okay, moment of truth. Let me get you a better angle. And so, rule number 1, it should start very quickly, right? We don't want to be waiting 10-15 seconds. So, yep, it started instantly. It's blinking because there's no system, and it'll go directly into the BIOS, which has no password, and the touch is working. So this is the correct procedure. We have touch firmware version. We have ME engine version, because both these probably are 0. I only focus on the touch firmware, but ME probably also has, because it also can be installed. But that's pretty much it. That is the correct procedure. So as you can see, it's a lot more intricate than I initially showed it, and I'm glad I found it now, not later, because God only knows how many devices have been bricked because of my crappy procedure that didn't work. Also, this is probably my most expensive video that I ever produced, because I had to get all these machines to kind of learn all that. It's not like there's a tutorial to do all this. There was quite a few months of guesswork and trial and error, but finally we have a procedure, and I know other people know about this procedure, but for some reason no one publishes it. And I suspect it's because Microsoft Surface Pro 4 is a great computer. There's plenty of them on the market that are cloud locked, meaning you can't even reinstall Windows on it. And they just boot, or the password won't let you get into the system at all. So this is how you do it. Works every time. Most of the times. No, it works every time, but there are different issues here and there. So, there's still a fair amount of unknowns, like with that touch not working in the BIOS but working in Windows. This one did not have that problem. I honestly have no idea what to even do with that. Why would that be an issue? But maybe after I install system on it, reset it completely, maybe the touch will return in BIOS. If not, it kind of sucks, because once you go into BIOS, there's nothing you can do unless you connect the external keyboard or mouse. I think this is it. I will be working on a much more exciting video actually regarding data recovery from these when we have a BitLocker issue like on that one. Not exactly like on that one, but we're gonna simulate a fried CPU on the board and the drive encrypted with BitLocker, and the data recovery from that. The user does not know the recovery key, does not have recovery key, but wants the data of the SSD. And I have a plan how to do it. I just need to put it in motion. Maybe I will start today, as the problem of reflashing and resetting has finally been resolved. If you are within a group of people that tried this procedure and bricked their devices, if you made a backup, just do this and you're fine. If you did not make a backup, either way, reach out to me. I know I gave someone my version that I've been flashing on these devices, my version of the BIOS. I sent it to someone via Discord. Definitely, I hope you're gonna see this video and not break any more devices. But if you have bricked some of these devices, either way, reach out to me. We'll figure something out. At the moment, I don't have a solution without the original BIOS, and I don't know if there is one. Sorry, there might not be. But in any case, we can figure something out. I'll help you out as you know, as a apology. I'll help you out somehow. You know, I'll make it up to you. Alrighty, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you found this interesting and useful. Now all those Surface Pro 4 machines that are on the market that are blocked and encrypted can now be reused and join the world for the second life of the device. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.